Hi there. Well, I thought I'd do a quick video showing how to make gaskets for our model engines really quickly. I've got this lovely old Mirco 61 which I'm about to test run, and I'm going to be putting on it this peak power Mirco dustbin muffler. Original muffler for this engine, but it didn't quite fit on the aeroplane that I'm putting it in because it needed a little bit of a spacer, and I've made a small aluminium spacer, but I wanted to put a gasket either side of it, so I'm going to be making two gaskets, one for either side of this spacer. Now I know a lot of people don't use gaskets when they're putting on silencers, mufflers, and that's fine. This technique is transferable. You can use it for back plates or front crankcase housings, whatever you want. It's a technique that's important, not the location. Sometimes I use a gasket on an exhaust, sometimes I don't. But anyway, I'll move the camera around and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, well this is my lovely old Mirco 61 which I'm going to make the gasket for, and as I said, it's going to be a gasket that will go between, well, two gaskets that will go between the crankcase housing, and this dustbin muffler, just to give a little bit more distance between the engine and the muffler. Now, the tools I'm going to need to make this, I'm obviously going to need my spacer, because that's what I'm going to use as a pattern. You could use the back plate or the actual crankcase itself if you wanted, but I'm going to be using the spacer. And we need an ink pad and a nice sharp scalpel and some ways of cutting a hole, a nice circular hole. I'm going to use these hole punches, but you can use the ones that you just place and hit with a hammer, just as good. And I'm going to be using some automotive, just standard automotive gasket paper, and the thickness of this is 0.6 of a mil. But I would suggest that if you're making a gasket, you measure the old one and get something just slightly thicker than that, because slightly thicker because it'll account for the compression that it's had during its lifetime. But gaskets are often of a set size, like on the back plate, so that this cover doesn't rub on the crank pin, for example. Right, now we're going to make an impression of the item that we want the gasket for onto the gasket paper, and you can see here I've done a few for an Irvine 40 Mark II. I've done the back plate and the exhaust. So what we do is we just push the item onto the ink pad and then produce a print, and we'll do that again just so we've got a couple. There we go, and we'll do the same for the other side at some point. Now I'm going to cut the holes first, and I find when we're cutting holes it's good to put something on the back side. I always get a cleaner cut if I just thicken it up a little bit, and I'm going to use the hole punch to line that up, and again, let's check we get that right. There we go, and we'll check that those are right for our bolt. Yep, nice size. And now we're going to use our nice sharp scalpel, nice new blade, just to cut this out. And I would suggest cutting out the inside first. It just seems to work better. If you cut the outside first, you've got very little to hold, and you cut this and you've got a small piece of card moving around. It doesn't seem to work as well. And actually I am going to put on a stronger pair of glasses because I need to see this really well. So we just run round with the scalpel, and obviously the sharper and better the blade, the better. And this is something that you just get used to doing, and always good to move the actual item itself more than the scalpel if you can. You just seem to get a better cut that way. If there's little bumps, you can always trim those off at a later date once you've got it cut out, just to neaten it up. Okay, there, we just need to trim that corner a little bit where it's, and if your scalpel is nice and sharp, you should be able to do that without any problem. There we go. And now for the outside edge. Just need a steady hand to do this. Right, there we go. And there we have our gasket. And we'll put the pins in. Now, I'll make one for the other side. Okay. So now we have our second gasket. Just neaten that up a little bit. And there we have our second gasket. So we can install this now on the engine. So hopefully you can see how easy it is to make ourselves our own gaskets. Whether it's for an exhaust like this or it's for a crankcase, whatever you need it for. I know a lot of the engines out there you can buy commercially made gaskets which are very good. But you know, you can't beat doing these things yourself. A really good sense of achievement. And if you want it now rather than waiting 3 or 4 days for the post to arrive, what better than making your own? Well, I hope you've enjoyed that and I hope you find it helpful. Thanks for watching.